Are you trying to excel your arm training in 2020? Right now, I'll be sharing with you guys my 4 best tips, so let's get into it. So my first biggest tip for building the biggest arms possible is to prioritize narrow grip presses. And I'm not just talking about close grip benching, I'm also talking about close grip seated presses. So it's not just for shoulders, they also bring up the long head of your triceps, you can go pretty heavy. And this could also apply to close grip chin-ups. You could also do those, they stretch out the long head to a certain extent. But close grip lifts in general are great for arms, for compounds, or for isolation lifts. So as you can see right now, I'm doing the close grip seated press. There's a very long range of motion. You can even add a pause at the bottom. You could add bands and chains if you're more advanced. But for most people, you don't need that. And it's a very great exercise to bring up those lagging triceps. It's also going to hit your shoulders very hard as well. Then you obviously got the basic close grip bench. But notice that my hands are a little bit closer than usual. So you could go a little bit more narrow than shoulder width. My second biggest tip is using isolation work in the strictest manner possible to take as many muscle groups as possible out of the equation. So in the past, I've talked about overhead power extensions. I've tried so many things on cheat reps for the arms, and I've came to the conclusion that strict form is the way to go. So if you notice, I have my back flat on the extensions and my knees are higher than my hips. So there's less leg drive. On my strict curls, I'm not arching like crazy, so my back is flat against the wall. And I like to do my extensions in this fashion. So when you lose a lot of leg drive and use this crazy arch, you don't really know how much work the arms are actually doing because you're using additional muscles. But if you really use the isolation to your advantage and try to take as many muscles out of it possible, you could get more out of less weight. You could feel the muscle more, and you just don't have to lift stupid heavy to get that training effect. Now, if you see me doing these body weight extensions, you see a lot of lifters, they arch their back excessively. They use a lot of additional muscles to help to get the job done. But I'm just keeping my knees soft, just going up and down. I could feel a wicked burn in the triceps. So thirdly, let's talk about feeling the arms the whole time. So if you see me do these incline curls, look how low I'm going and look how high I'm going. If you notice, at the bottom, I'm not really feeling the biceps. And at the top, I'm not really feeling them much either. I like to call it unnecessary range of motion. So right there, the bottom, I'm not really feeling the arms. And if I go at the top, right there, I'm not feeling the arms either. So what I like to do is point my fist closer to my shoe and stop there. So you want to start the range of motion where you actually feel the arm, and you want to end it where you also feel the arm as well. So you feel it the whole time. So if you're training your arms for, let's say, 15 reps, 1 minute set, you're going to feel them the whole time during that 1 minute. We don't have time to waste doing unnecessary range of motion. So that's how you're going to feel the arms. That's how you're going to get them more jacked. It's definitely working for me, definitely working more for my clients. And a good example of this could be on the skull crusher. You see a lot of lifters, they bring the easy bar to the chest. The problem is you're not going to feel your triceps when the easy bars line up with your chest. In other words, it's not the end of the world if you do your skull crushers like this. It's not necessarily going to hinder your progress too much. But if you're trying to train your arms in a fashion where you smoke them in a lot less time, so you can get out of the gym faster while getting just as many results, I'd recommend having the easy bar line up with the forehead or a little bit past it, because you're gonna be able to feel the triceps the whole time. Now, I set up a bit wrong on this, but ideally you want your head being very close to the edge of the bench. You just go up and down and you're gonna feel the triceps a lot more. There's less unnecessary range of motion. So the last tip of the video is upping the intensity without always adding weight. So a lot of lifters, when they start going heavier on their extensions, they start going heavier on the curls, other muscles will be called into play. Now, if you factor in tip number 2, a lot of that will be resolved. But you could also take this up a notch by not always having to add weight to these lifts. To a certain extent, if you're a novice, yes, obviously you want to add weight, even intermediate. But you reach a certain point where you could make the exercise a lot harder without having to go super heavy, especially on lifts like your curls. So you could do this by doing these at the end, doing them when you're really pre-exhausted so you don't need as much weight to get the job done. You could do a lot of pause reps. You could limit the time that you're at the top, so you don't want to hang out at the top, make it a lot harder. You could add a tempo, supersets, drop sets, all that kind of good stuff, and this will help you get a lot more out of less weight, and you'll still get a great training effect. As a bonus for some variability in your training, I'd also throw in some unilateral work, and then you're all good to go. Alright, so there you guys have it. Hope you learned something in today's episode. This is how you take your arms to the next level. So let me know how it goes with your progress, and I hope you build the biggest arms possible in 2020.